morning. I'm going to ask Juan, who is manning the home base over at Rising Tide, to introduce us and get us started, and then I'm going to give the good news for this week. So,
hi, I'm Juan, part of the Rising Tide team, and Leigh right here is our co-owner. She's gonna tell us all about the good news that's happening around the world and how people are innovating while we're in this COVID process. So, yeah, and then
yep.
We'll be emailing you all the links and everything after this, and we are recording this, so we'll also have this video up on YouTube, and we'll send you the link to that once it uploads.
Yep. Yeah, so basically I started this last week because a lot of us are focusing, because we have to, on all the challenges that come from dealing with the pandemic, but I thought, there's also a lot of good and fun, wonderful things that are happening in the world because of it, that it's spurring this innovation. So I thought kind of aggregating that information on a Friday is kind of a good way to go into the weekend and not be focused on the negative. I will say before I start this, I have 2 Siberian Huskies who are office mates of mine currently. So in the midst of this, there may be barking. I will attempt for that not to happen, but I always have to make that disclosure. On my last conference call, my Husky decided to talk, which isn't even barking. It's like a moan kind of thing that he did. And he was moaning throughout the entire conversation, which my client really appreciated because it made this call much more entertaining, I guess. But anyway, so hopefully we won't have that happen. But anyway, so I'm going to start with collaborative research and hackathons that are going on to kind of seek solutions to address COVID. So the number of those hackathons and funded prizes are increasing and increasing. So I found, for right now, the ones I found, the Decentralized AI Alliance, under the leadership of Singularity Net and Ocean Protocol, has created the Covid-a-thon, which is bringing together global AI and blockchain projects and developers to create intelligent decentralized tools to combat COVID-19 and reduce risk for future infectious outbreaks. Basically, they're using trying to have ideas of how to use machine learning to fight the infection. And we'll talk about some people that are actually already doing that later on in this presentation. They're looking for solutions under medicine and epidemiology, data privacy and sovereignty, informational and coping tools, and open innovation. And then earlier in the week, the Code19 Hackathon happened, based in India. It brought together 6,000 hackers, mentors, domain experts, and socially conscious citizens to work on open source solutions related to India's pandemic crisis. It was sponsored by a Silicon Valley foundation. It offered $34,000 in US prize money, and 90% of the participants were younger than 25 years old. So what's kind of interesting is that this is engaging people across the age spectrum, globally, whatever. The White House and a coalition of research groups have prepared the Code19 database, which is an open research data set that they have. It has 51,000 scholarly articles in it, and all about COVID-19 and SARS and all of the related coronaviruses. And this freely available data set is what they're asking is global researchers who use natural language processing tools to generate new insights by searching those articles to see if they can put together some kind of things that are popping up in multiple articles that might be successful. NASA is using its internal crowdsourcing platform, NASA at Work, to source ideas from NASA's employees, in addition to supporting outside research groups by use of their supercomputing technology and their AI. And finally, there's a group called InnoCentive, which is an organization that typically exists before COVID, coordinates challenges from governments and nonprofits and corporations across multiple industries. Basically, these groups will put out that they have a problem, and what an InnoCentive does is try and put together out of crowdsourced researchers, people who are willing to work on the problem for a relatively small prize. So they have a database of about 400,000 people that have participated before. They right now have a COVID-19 page that has multiple COVID-19 challenges on it. And there were over 900 people crowdsourced and already working on the listed problems, which ranged from everything from things like protective film that could be used to block infection, to social problems and how to deal with the social problems that are coming from the challenges of COVID. So that's kind of cool. So while all of that research is going on, there's also testing, treatment, and vaccine updates. The World Health Organization announced this week that there are currently 70 vaccines in the pipeline, and 3 of those have been determined to be highly likely to be successful. The furthest one along is in the clinical process, developed by Hong Kong-listed CanSino Biologics and the Beijing Institute of Biotech, which is in a phase 2 trial. The other 2 being tested in humans are being done by Moderna and Innovio Pharmaceuticals. So anyway, so that's at least 3 possibilities that are kind of moving through the track, which is good news for all of us who want to leave our houses. AstraZeneca is testing the effectiveness of its new cancer drug Calquence to suppress the immune response to COVID, so that the lungs would not swell up in the same way that they do now, because what COVID does is cause an inflammatory reaction for the body's trying to fight off the virus, but it overly inflames the lungs. So this would be a way to stop that. A company in Israel called Pluristem has successfully treated 1 American and 6 Israeli COVID patients who had all been intubated for weeks and had failed on all other treatments using experimental cell therapy. The US treatment was authorized under the US Food and Drug Administration's single patient expanded access program, which is part of the emergency package of regulatory easing that's happening, so that potential treatments can get accelerated through the medical review process quickly. So that's kind of exciting that that's actually happening, and all of the patients who have went through that cell therapy treatment have recovered. So that's pretty exciting. Medtronic, which is a long-term medical device company, has released the full design specs, manuals, design documents, and software code for its product, the Puritan Bennett 560 portable ventilator. So what that does is it allows other manufacturers to build this ventilator, which has kind of been in the market since 2010, is well tested, it's light, it's portable, it can be moved around. And they said they released it because it's a fairly simple design, and they're hoping that innovators will take their platform of their design and improve upon it. So that's pretty exciting that they're willing to give away that intellectual property. Ford has announced that it's manufacturing 50,000 ventilators in the next 100 days, in a partnership with GE Healthcare and the support of the Union of Automobile Workers. So the ventilator design was authorized or licensed from a Florida company called Aeron, and the production starts April 20th in Michigan. After the first 50,000 are produced, the assembly line will be able to produce 30,000 ventilators a month, which that's a lot of ventilators, which is good. We may need them, but it's exciting. Pick My Kid, which is a Tampa company, a local Tampa company, that has a software as a service platform that's usually used to speed the process of parents picking up their children at school, wants to convert their software to speed through the drive-through process for COVID testing, so that you could kind of get through the hurdles of signing in and all of that before you're actually dealing with a person. They're waiting on confirmation of funding for that software conversion. Another one, Shared Harvest, and this is kind of cool. Shared Harvest is a pre-existing nonprofit fintech platform that typically what they do is they help, they kind of combine skilled volunteers with needed projects, and they incentivize it by relieving student loan debt and providing emergency money. So they have opened up a particular thing for COVID. It's called My Ovid MD, and it safely connects individuals to resources in real time, providing the services within 15 minutes of the call. They've put together a volunteer coalition of doctors and other allied health professionals called the Community Health Partners. And the members of that actually get the student loan debt relief and the emergency saving funds. The goal of the program is to create grassroots and virtual access to medical for people who are either uninsured, underinsured, or in areas where there's not a lot of medical treatment access available. So the resource, you can get a medical assessment, a crisis buddy, or a virtual meeting with a doctor through the program. And that is all being provided free to the people who access the phone line. So that's pretty cool. In the area of spatial analytics, I know there are a lot of things going on. This one's kind of freaky. So I don't know how many people have bought thermometers at CVS in the last few months, but Kenza Health, which is one of the primary manufacturers of those contactless temperature thermometers that you kind of click on your head to see, they've utilized uploaded temperature data to collect, that they've collected from these smart thermometers and a related app that is on people's phones to track temperature data from across the country and provide real-time insights into emerging COVID hotspots. So basically, literally, it's a heat map of temperatures, people with temperatures, that shows concentrations of where people are, lots of people are having fevers. And the theory is that that can indicate a COVID outbreak because fever is one of the first symptoms of that. So, and it's spatial because they're doing it on a map. So you can actually look at a map that they have available and see these highlighted spots, which, you know, scarily enough for us, Tampa was one of the places lit up last night. So we'll have to see what that means and how predictive it actually is. X-Mode and Tectonics have teamed up to use data on movement of slow-moving vehicles and pedestrians on streets to measure the rate of compliance with social distancing by developing heat maps, and by that they mean density maps, that depict the frequency and numbers of slow-moving objects on the roads. So that's bicyclists, walkers, you know, baby carriages, et cetera, et cetera. So the data shows that the Italians, thus far, the Italians have been the most compliant of any country with social distancing. And both Shanghai and Seattle are kind of failing abysmally in this attempt to social distance based on the amount of moving. Either that or it means people are just being very healthy and all jogging separately at social distances far away from each other. But nonetheless, it's there. In Czechoslovakia, a volunteer group called Code19 CZ is using mapping and telephonic interviews to track contacts of known COVID-19 patients. So basically at the medical, when someone is treated for COVID, they're interviewed by a phone operator to track their past contacts. And the operator is given access to something called Memory Map, which includes the victim's telephonic data, banking data, phone location history, and other sources to help the victim remember who they might have seen. And then all of that, that's all done with their consent using the the European GDPR privacy protections. So people are voluntarily doing this. And then the contacts that are identified as people who've been exposed are asked to self-quarantine and they're also given tests. So the idea is that to track the spread of it and minimize the amount of social distancing the general public has to do by accurately targeting the people who've been exposed. Czechoslovakia adopted this model and is using it throughout their country, and the developers have offered the software, the code, and the process for free for other countries to adopt if they want to. So kind of an interesting update. And then there's the one that was on the news a lot this week. Apple and Google have teamed up to put an application on 3 billion, that's a billion with a B, smartphones, which represents 1/3 of the global population. Just want to say that's 1/3 of the global population, to opt into an app that will notify them when they have come into contact with somebody with COVID. So the process will work like this. Starting in May, if a user tests positive for COVID and adds that data to their public health app, users who they came in close proximity with over the previous several days will be notified of that contact if they also have the app. Then they'll be asked to self-quarantine. The period of self-quarantine will be set by health agencies, and the recommendation will pop up on the phone based on the local health agency recommendation on quarantine. The second phase in June will eliminate the need to download an app, and it'll just be a button that you opt into or opt out of on your phone. And it's going to be on both Android and iPhone. So it's very big brother-ish, I have to say. But on the flip side, again, if we're trying to head to social distancing that is more limited, it's a good way to track and help people manage their exposure. And then the other thing many of us have been doing, which is really geographic information system based data, is looking at the global, national, and state level maps of COVID cases. So in my summary of all these things, I've put links to the global one, the national one, and the Florida one. So that is kind of interesting, although there's been some debate about what data is being used, whether data is being over-reported, under-reported, et cetera. It's still offered on the web, updated daily, so people can keep track of the data on the pandemic. Similar maps are being used to identify trends in cases by neighborhood, ethnicity, and income levels. So they've identified, for instance, that the African American community is having a higher proportion of cases than the non-African American communities. So that's all the stuff that's being done with GIS. In terms of innovative supply chain and production facilities, Bright Machines is a startup that creates software-defined microfactories. This was something I had to learn about. I didn't know about this. Bringing together machine learning, computer vision, and configurable robotic cells to enable intelligent assembly and inspection. So outside of COVID, what they do is they get hired by companies to go in and automate their processes using microfactory advanced IT tools. The company has announced that it's going to provide no-cost automation for up to 12 months for companies that are assembling medical devices solutions to combat COVID. So it's basically software as a service, simplifying automation, procurement, and includes hardware, software, and support. So that's pretty exciting. If you want to scale up to do medical device assembly, there's now a pretty high-tech tool that's going to be available. There is also, if you're geeky like me, there is an open source Google Doc now called the COVID Medical Supply Guide. I put a link to it in the papers. That it's being updated very frequently. The most recent update added a number of open source plans for PPE, including face shields, face masks, gowns. It added new supply categories, including bias tape for those of you who are making masks at home, and notes for disinfecting and reusing N95 masks. The updated FAQ section regarding the new FDA guidelines for 3D printing. So people that are in the mode of making their own PPE or making PPE for healthcare providers, there's a lot of free information there kind of aggregated in a place on a Google Doc. In PPE, as we all know, PPE has been in short supply. The company Battelle has announced its availability of its critical care decontamination system, which can decontaminate up to 80,000 used N95 respiratory masks per day. So decontaminated masks can be used up to 20 times through this process. And their company is currently determining whether it can also decontaminate other types of PPE. The Pentagon is sold on this system and spent $415 million to purchase 60 of them, which they are distributing to different cities around the country. Right now, there are 2 in New York, 1 in Columbus, Ohio, 1 in Boston, 1 in Chicago, and 1 in Tacoma. But when they add all 60 systems into the system, which FEMA is going to decide where they go, there will be 4.8 million masks sterilized per day. And that equals out to 34 million per week, which will definitely help our healthcare providers stay safe. So that's pretty exciting news. In the kind of odd news, if you're a diver or a swimmer like me, some engineers have figured out how to convert the decathlon and sportismo full snorkel mask into protective gear for medical personnel. The main advantage of this solution is that it covers the whole face, so the infection shouldn't have any way to get to mucous membranes. The main disadvantage is that these masks are not hard to find now, and no one's going to get to snorkel anytime soon when this is over. But other than that, it's good news. So the website of the nonprofit Protect COVID staff has announced the development of 2 different aerosol protective devices, a box and a shield, that basically protect medical staff from the droplets when they're intubating patients. They have been used in the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, Boston Medical Center, and are being expanded to other hospitals. The website provides the general manufacturing details of it so that people can do modifications to it to make it more useful for their particular medical treatments. It includes a medical grade clear drape, as well as an actual hard box. It kind of looks like, if you know what kind of in intensive care infant boxes look like when they're taking care of newborn babies that come early. It kind of looks like that. They slip it over the head of the patient and then work in the box so that they aren't being exposed. Kind of off the subject of technology a little bit, but related, is that some of the changes that we're having to deal with COVID is leading governments to look at innovative social policies. One of my favorite has been basically the recognition that the homeless population is very vulnerable to COVID and also could be a super spreader for the rest of the population. And so cities are doing different things to house the homeless at record numbers. So the city of Tampa has created a 100-tent city with bathrooms and showers. Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New Orleans have rented out numerous hotel rooms for the homeless in the downtown hotels that are empty anyway because all the conferences have been canceled. In San Jose, the city is using a combination of tiny houses, mobile homes, and hotel rooms. San Francisco did something different. They attempted to create these large warehouse facilities that are divided up to meet social distancing, but it kind of looked very much like a scene out of The Handmaid's Tale, so they've gotten a little bit of criticism about that. But anyway, it's interesting that they are doing that. A lot of the cities are using a combination of anticipated federal funds out of the CARES program and their own funds. But anyway, we're currently housing more homeless people in the United States than we have in years and years, so that's kind of interesting. Over in Europe, they have made the decision, there's an informal alliance in the European Parliament that's made up of EU ministers of environment from 79 parties across the political spectrum, nonprofit groups, 37 CEOs, 28 business associations, and the European Trade Union Confederation, and some think tanks that are basically saying we need to use recovery funds to rebuild the economy to support ecological change by focusing on advances in new technologies such as renewables, zero-emission mobility, agroecology, and energy efficiency. The European Union has pledged that their recovery will happen in the context of a 2050 zero-emission goal, but that the trillion-euro project will fund assistance to coal-producing areas so they won't bear the brunt of the transition. So that's kind of exciting too, that people are thinking about how can we use this recovery money to actually advance other goals for long-term fighting climate change. So now, since we're all still in quarantine, there's been some innovations to make life easier in quarantine this week. First of all, if you are trying to work from home and you need business deals, there is a listing of COVID-related deals that apps and office supplies are being made available free. When I looked at the list last night, it had 257 deals on it for free software and apps. So that's kind of cool. That link will be in my in the summary if you want to check it out. It covers everything from word processing software to organizational apps to remote workforce coordination devices. So it's pretty cool. For healthcare and other essential workers, childcare has become a big issue since the schools and daycares are closed and the essential workers are still going to work. So Komai, it's a babysitting cooperative app, is trying to help. And so basically what they're doing is their app works where people trade babysitting time and they have they get background checks and then they trade babysitting each other's children and they get points on the system and they buy points through the system somehow. So Komai is making all the points for first responders and other healthcare providers free so that they can coordinate in their community to help find babysitters to help them take care of their children while they're taking care of all of us. So that's kind of a cool thing. If you're looking for toilet paper or Clorox, you can use the app InStock to search stores near you and limit your exposure to other people. Using crowdsourced data and stocking data from the actual stores, you can look up things from stores in Walmart, Target, CVS, and many others around you. And you can also compare prices. So, not that anybody's really comparing prices on toilet paper right now, but anyway, it's there and it's available. And if you are working with your children and finding that they need additional school materials, OutSchool, which is an online educational provider, is providing $1 million in free classes to assist parents who are teaching their kids. When I looked on their website, they have one that's like a Harry Potter chemistry thing. So, I mean, they're fun. And then the Museum of Modern Art is offering free art classes through Coursera, during the pandemic, including the subjects included modern art, seeing through photography, and fashion as design. So you can visit the museum's website and get virtual tour of the museum if you're not taking the art classes. You can also visit the Paul Getty Museum in LA and the Musée d'Orsay in Paris with a virtual tour for free. So you can be going somewhere even while you're sitting here. Last week, I went through a lot of the other more high-end techie type virtual reality, augmented reality stuff. If you're interested in that, please check out my blog from last week. This one will be posted this afternoon with all the links, and we'll send it to anybody who's on the web thing. But now, since we're kind of a small group, I'd like to open it up and see if anybody has any other great innovative things they want to share, or if anybody has any questions, I can try and tell you what I figured out. Hi.
Hello.
Anybody have questions?
The bleach information is going to become very handy for me.
Yeah, I know. It's exciting, right? So, and NStock has existed. It's just that it's become, I think, much more useful now, and it's INSTOK, no C. But that link will be in the materials as well. Oh, I forgot. I want to share my screen. I want to show you one other thing. Hold on, just one second. This was another thing I found. So this is a map of innovation. So this is self-reported innovation, but basically if you're interested to see what people are saying they're doing that's innovative related to COVID, you can click on these little dots and zoom in. So zooming into our area right now, these are the list of the 3 things that have currently been posted, well, 5 things that have been posted now about what we're doing in Orlando and in Tampa. So they're in the Poynter Institute in St. Pete. So they've got a grant program going on, which we got to add to our grant list, guys. So, so anyway, so I just thought that's a fun website. It's called coronavirus.startupblink.com/innovations. So if you're into searching for data, that's kind of fun. And there were some really amazing projects around the world that were on that project. So let me go back to this and stop sharing so I can see everybody. So, hi, Tina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Hi, the other Tina. So, hi, Louise. So, anyway, hi. So, so anyway, if anybody has thoughts or questions, I'd love to share. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great weekend and looks forward to more time to think about innovative things or possibly become the next party on the list of things that have come up. So, that sound good?
The information.
Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Leigh. Good stuff. Enjoy your weekend.